Okay, it is 1 p.m. We will call to order this meeting of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. This meeting is being held from various locations. Chair is in San Diego at the San Diego office. Other members are in Pasadena, Oakland, and Sacramento. We'll begin the meeting with a roll call of the board members. Chair Block is present. Vice Chair Reeves. I couldn't hear you, Dan. Did you say present?
Present.
Thank you. Member Ang.
Present.
Member Allen.
Present.
And Member Kemp-Monning.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Please let the minutes show that all members are present. We'll move now to approval of the minutes. Now we have minutes from 2 meetings to be approved this month. We did not approve minutes last month. The minutes from April 27th, we did not approve last month. So our 2 sets of minutes are April 27, 2022 and May 18, 2022. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Mike.
With regard to the May 18th minutes, I wanted to just indicate that I had asked about the number of COVID cases within CUIAB, and this is had been directed at Chief Silva, and I don't believe it got included in the minutes. And I believe he answered 18. Is Chief Silva here with us today?
Yes, he is. Rob?
Yes.
Rob, I believe I had asked that question about the number of COVID cases, and I believe you reported it was 18.
That is correct.
Okay, so anyway, I wanted to just to add that amendment to Mr. Silva's report, if with permission, Mr. Chair.
Is there any objection to add that statement to the minutes of May 18th?
It's been the motion. I have no objection.
I'm sorry, Mike. It's kind of hard to hear the members who are in the boardroom for me. Objection to add that statement to the minutes of May 18th. Okay, thank you.
I have no objection.
Okay, no objection. I'm sorry, Mike. It's kind of hard to hear the members who are in the boardroom for me. Objection to add that statement to the minutes of May 18th. Okay, thank you. I have no objection. Okay, no objection. I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm sorry, was it me that you had to
Objection to add that statement to the minutes of. Are others hearing a lot of feedback of what we previously said? Yes. Okay, no objection.
I'm sorry, was it me? I can't hear who's speaking right now.
I don't think anybody is. I think this is just what we said earlier. Yes.
YouTube delay.
I can't hear who's speaking right now.
I don't think anybody is. I think this is just what we said earlier. Okay, there appears to be a technical problem with the sound, but let's go on with the approval of the minutes. So we have the minutes of April 27, 2022 and May 18 as amended of 2022 to be approved. Is there a motion to approve April 27th and May 18 as amended?
As amended, I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, it's been moved that we approve both sets of minutes. We'll do a roll call vote. The chair votes aye. Vice Chair Reeves.
Aye.
Member Ang.
Ing votes aye.
Member Allen.
Aye.
Member Kemp-Monning.
Aye.
Okay, please show the minutes being adopted unanimously for both April 27 and May 18, 2022, with the May 18 minutes amended. We'll now move to the chair's report. As I say every month, for those who are watching for the first time, you'll see a board meeting today that takes about an hour in length, but be aware that most of the board, the vast majority of the board's work is done between meetings. And in fact, since our last meeting, board members resolved 672 appellate cases. So a lot of good work was done in the last, actually 3 weeks. So thank you to the board members and staff who facilitated that. At the same time, in our field offices, our ALJs heard thousands of cases and continue to do their good job. Only other item I want to report on is that Chief Judge Kutry and I met with the Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development, Natalie Pelugia. And in our meeting, we talked about several different things, but one of which was how well AO is doing and the board is doing in terms of workload and timeliness for the parties, and recognizing that much of this is due to the fact that we don't have an AO, appellate operations, the kind of huge caseload at this point that they have in the field offices. And that's largely because the field office judges, the ALJs in the field, are doing such a good job. So by and large, the parties are satisfied with the field office judgments, so they're not appealing those judgments. And that thank you goes to the the FO judges and FO staff, and also to those doing training of the FO judges, because they're obviously doing a fine job. That said, Secretary Pelugia was particularly happy with the AO timeliness, and we are, as Jody has told us over the months, we have been for the DOL year 21-22 that ended March 31st, we are well ahead of all Department of Labor standards, and we are doing far better than our counterparts around the United States. So again, congratulations to our judges, both from me, our AO staff and board members, both from me and from Secretary Pelugia. With that, we'll move to reports from other board members, starting with Vice Chair Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have a report this month.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Moving to Member Ng.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank the Pasadena office, particularly Judge Whalen, for being permitted to use the facilities here and getting an update on their management. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Did you hear that? Or yeah,
I did. Member Allen.
I have no report other than to once again express my appreciation for the staff at all levels of this organization. And I do realize that we're, like the rest of the country, still dealing with another upsurge once again with COVID. And it's my understanding that despite all that, we're doing well. So just my heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Member Kemani.
Thank you. Just no report, but also just to thank the Bay Area Office of Appeals for having me here today, and especially PJ Hanna. I appreciate being able to join in here and to echo Michael's comments. Yes, the numbers of the cases being processed by our agency are surprising to me this board meeting, given what's happening with COVID and Omicron. And I just really appreciate how diligently everyone's working in challenging circumstances. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on now to item 5 on our agenda. Item 5 is public comment. Do we have anyone? I'll ask the administrator. Do we have anyone who is in line for public comment?
Chair Block, I have no hands raised for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Then we move on to item number 6, a report from Mike Kutry, our Chief Judge and Executive Director.
Good afternoon, Chair Block. Thank you, and board members. As I generally do, I'll begin with the field operations timeliness measures reporting and some national averages for context. And then I'll also update the board on some field operations challenges and some exciting new changes. What I'm presenting on with timeliness is a preview. And it's an estimate of the final May figures, which typically take a minimum of 10 to 14 days to finalize. So I'll give you a snapshot today and an estimate, and then I'll provide the final May timeliness figures at the July meeting along with the June figures. What I do know is that we closed May at another high level of production. As Chair Block referenced, the field closed many thousands of cases, over 26,000 to be exact. We matched the second highest total in the last 7 months. As we have done for the last 18 months, we continue to meet regularly with EDD to project future workload. EDD, based on the progress of catching up on its backlog, continues to anticipate that appeals will continue to level off through the end of this calendar year. 30 and 45-day time lapse projections are virtually unchanged from April. They are still in the low single digits as CUIAB receives appeals from EDD on a significantly delayed basis and has focused exclusively on resolving the oldest appeals on a first in, first out basis. The national time lapse figures reflect similar challenges in improving timeliness in all but the smallest states. The average for states on 30-day timeliness continues to be in the low teens, and for 45-day in the high teens. So this is a national phenomenon. I joined a national call several weeks ago to discuss with executives from all 50 states their predicament, and all matched California's very similarly, except for the smallest states. Given the continuous delay in receiving appeals from EDD and the high volume, and given that the CUIAB has been focusing on resolving the oldest appeals first, I have made special mention of our average case age for the last many board meetings. Our average case age remained stable in the last month. It is anticipated that it will be calculated at 93 days, up a tiny percentage from last month, but still down significantly from the high of 105 days last November. At the last report, the gap between California's and the national case age widened further, and it is still a significant gap between California's and the national to California's benefit. The national case age is 170 days, a full 77 days greater than California's. So I would like to again thank the field offices and the board for staying true to that mission of reducing the oldest appeal workload first to the benefit of those parties who've been waiting the longest. Unfortunately, the last 3 weeks since our meeting saw a significant upward trend in COVID cases and staffing impacts. In that short duration, we closed 5 offices briefly. All resumed full operations the next day, and very few hearings were lost. In mitigation of the current trend, we continue to have our unvaccinated employees weekly test, which is pursuant to the state's testing protocol, which has been in place since last September. Another thank you to the administrative services team led by Mr. Silva. They have the burden of continuously responding to these recent waves of cases and managing the constantly evolving protocols and reporting requirements. His team has been instrumental in our rapid response to all new cases, ensuring that prompt cleaning and tracing are in place to ensure the safest work environment possible. I would also like to again thank our field office staff and judges. It's their diligence in protecting each other by social distancing and other protective measures, which has ensured the remarkably safe reality of our field offices. So thank you, and I encourage you to keep that up as we weather this most recent storm. In recruitment news, the 11th cohort of new ALJs since March of 2020 has now finished their classroom training and have had about a month of cases in their local field offices. The 12th cohort of new ALJs is being scheduled, and that is, of course, being led very capably by Presiding Judge Bach. In very exciting news, I visited the Fresno office with CIO Willoughby a couple weeks ago and was able to see the new CAMS appeals management system in progress being used enthusiastically by the Fresno staff and judges. They provided us an excellent tour of the system, and we were able to view the entire life cycle of a case up to hearing and decision in the new system. CIO Willoughby will be updating you shortly about the system and its plans for future expansion. But I would like to give a huge thank you to Fresno for agreeing to pilot this in such remarkable fashion. They did an excellent job, and they've really set the table for the rest of the offices to go after. So thank you to Fresno. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Questions or comments for Chief Judge Kutry, beginning with Vice Chair Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions, but I do just want to make one quick remark. Mike, thank you for keeping us updated in terms of the COVID incidences throughout the state. CUIAB has been doing, the field office has been doing a great job in terms of maintaining operations as we go along through this next cycle of waves of infections. And it's remarkable that we haven't fallen farther behind in our workload, which is a testament to you, your staff, and all the field offices out there who keep plugging away despite all the challenges. So thank you, and thank you to the staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you, Dan. Moving on now to Member Ng.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Chief Kutry, thank you so much for your willingness to handle issues between meetings, especially meeting via Zoom or Teams prior to the meeting. I did have a question. I want to commend you for giving excellent updates on the vacancies, the training, and the staffing level of the field judges. I wanted to find out, is there a similar critique or analysis of the support staff in terms of where we are of vacancies? I know that as a trend nationwide, there have been issues in terms of keeping those staffing levels. Is this the appropriate time to ask for a report on that, or perhaps at the next meeting?
I would like to defer to Administrative Services Chief Silva on that issue. He's much more dialed into the current recruitments and the percentages of filled versus vacant positions. And I'm confident that if he can't get you that answer today, then we can get that to you within a couple of days.
Okay, I'll withdraw the question until Chief Silva. Thanks again, Chief Kutry, for doing an excellent job and keeping in touch with the board members from where I see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Member Allen.
Yes, thank you for your report. Like you, kudos to Fresno for being willing the first to go to do this. And I want to say I very much agree with the comments made by my colleague, co-chair, Vice Chair Reeves. And also I look forward to, with a little bit of trepidation, but looking forward to the training on the CAN system. So thank you.
We do too. Thank you, Member Allen.
Thank you, Michael. Member Kamani.
Thank you, Chair Block. Just thank you to Chief Kutry for your reports and your availability to the board members between meetings. And yes, I'm also excited about hearing more how Fresno's been doing, and I love to hear that they've been enthusiastically embracing it because I'm sure it can be challenging. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. No other further comments or questions for Judge Kutry. We'll move on to a report from Jody Remke, the PJ for Appellate Operations. Jody?
Good morning, Chair Block and board members. I'll be going over the key performance indicators as we do every month. As you can see from the information, the numbers are still unfortunately low for May. With the cases that we closed in 45 days or less, as you know, the standard guideline is to do 50% of the cases or more. We only hit 3.7. Which is even lower than last month, and I know of great concern to many of you. The little bit of bright news is, as you can see, I'm still saying that the real hot spot there is that 30 days, because when you go to those cases closed in 75 days or less, we closed 97%, which is a slight increase from last month. So we are still definitely working a backlog. I do hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I've been talking with Chief Kutry about our options. As you know, right now we're using 2 retired annuitants and 1 field judge. We're going to bring on 2 more FOALJs by the end of the month, which should make a significant improvement, and then monitor that. And we've discussed the possibility of bringing on a couple more ALJs thereafter, if that isn't enough. You know, the issue, as I talked about last month, is that we're really talking about a narrow field here, because we don't have the number of cases that the field has, but every 50 cases makes a percentage difference. So anyhow, we're trying to find that sweet spot. We are monitoring it. And like I said, the good news for the parties is that although we're missing that 45-day key indicator, we are definitely hitting the 75-day and getting these out as fast as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Any questions or comments for PJ Remke, beginning with Vice Chair Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jody, for that presentation. Just a quick question. We're relying heavily on retired annuitants. I think you mentioned we have 2 right now. How much longer will they be with us? Because I know that there's a limited term in which they can work. Can you maybe enlighten me a little bit about how long they'll be with us, and hopefully they will be with us for this, through the summer at least?
That's a good question. I'll have to look at their actual numbers of the hours worked so far. One was working mostly in the field, but not full time. So I think we're going to have them through the summer for sure, but I will verify that.
Okay, that's great. That's all I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Chief Kutry, the limits on retired annuitant time working, those were off for a while, I recall. Those are back on now?
Yes, they are back on. So that I'll let Administrative Services Chief Silva explain the finer nuances of those. There was a brief pause on the time that a retired annuitant could work during a fiscal year, and the time between retirement and when they could come back to work. Those were briefly suspended, but are both back in place. So it does impose some limits on us as to what we can do. But Mr. Silva can give you the exact parameters of that as they stand now.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Rob, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to wait till your report?
I'm happy to discuss it now if you prefer.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, for the last couple of fiscal years, there have both the 180-day waiting period for someone to return as a retired annuitant and the 960-hour limit that you could work in a fiscal year were both suspended. However, they back in March, they were both reenacted. So the 180-day waiting period to return as a retired annuitant was back in as of March. And as of July 1st, a few weeks from now, our retired annuitants will again be limited to 960 hours, roughly half time for a full year to work. So to answer Vice Chair Reeves' question, the summer should not be a problem in that as of July 1st, that whole new set of 960 hours begins.
Good, thank you, Rob, I appreciate that. Moving on now to Member Eng.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jody, I have no questions, but thank you so much again for the spot on and instantaneous responses decision. And there's a major issue that's been raised, and but for your and of course Becky's help, we've kind of be stuck on that for a number of days. But your instantaneous and very informed response has been very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Moving on to Member Allen.
Judge Remke, I think you know how much I appreciate and admire both you and all the AO judges, the job they're doing. And also just for, I know with Judge Bach and for yourself, all this training now, 11 cohorts, that's pretty amazing amount of training that has been done over the last time period. So I just wanted to thank you for your good work and for all the AO judges. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Moving now to Member Kent Munning.
Thank you, Chair Block. Just thank you, PJ Remke, for doing the communications with Chief Kutry and constantly looking at the numbers. I know it's a balancing act. And with the increased volume we have, we certainly are reaching out to you more for your guidance with some of the complex cases. So appreciate your availability there, and to all the AO ALJs who are fielding our questions with the increased volume of cases we have. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Jody. Again, thank you, Laura, for your questions, comment. Moving on now to item number 8, report from Jeff Willoughby, our Chief Information Officer. Jeff?
Good afternoon, Chair Block and members of the board. We do have a brief update this month, as it's been a short time since our last meeting. We continue to hear cases in our Fresno pilot office. We're collecting lessons learned and cataloging items that need to be addressed prior to launching our next office. We're engaging our systems integrator on those support issues, and we really want to ensure a smooth onboarding process for the rest of the field offices as they're brought into the production system. So there are a small number of items that we do need to address, and I'll have a much clearer idea of that timeline by the time we meet next in July. I was very fortunate to go see the system in action in Fresno, and the reviews by staff, ALJ and PJ Price were enlightening and very gratifying. Appellate operations and the board have an introduction to the system scheduled for this week. So I look forward to your feedback once you become a little bit more familiar with the interface. Our online check-in system continues to see robust use. So as mentioned last time, we will continue to use that in parallel with the online public portal. So with that, again, a very brief report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. I think I speak for the board in saying we're looking forward to the introductory review we're going to be getting later in the week. Moving now to Dan Reeves, Vice Chair. Questions or comments for CIO Willoughby?
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for that report. Congratulations on the Fresno rollout. Everything seems to be running smoothly, and I hope that continues. I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Member Eng.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're extremely excited about that work and your team of results, even beyond expectation. My question is, at what point will it move on to other offices, and what is the metric that you take into consideration in terms of selecting the next office? We'd be happy to have it down here too.
And absolutely understood. So we do have, as mentioned, a handful of things that we have been keeping an eye on, and really the need to have Fresno as our pilot office is so we could identify the most impactful issues that are out there. We have identified a very small number of them, but those need to be really smoothed out before we launch into another office. So as I said, by the time July meeting rolls around, I'll be able to give you a much more clear picture of what that cadence looks like. We have discovered exactly what we had hoped to, I guess. We really hoped that there would be no issues, but reality intervened. So we're tackling them, and we'll have better answers for you, both on when the next office is going to happen. And I think we'll work with all of the PJs and Executive Director Kutry to figure out which one is going to be next.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Moving on now to member Allen. Michael.
Jefferson, thank you and all the IT staff for your good work with the modernization project, and the most recent what's been happening with Fresno with the rollout. And I would like to give a shout out to one of your new hires, Mr. Matt Monk, who helped me this morning cure my Outlook problems. It had a virus or some sort of flu, but anyway, he cured it. And so just shout out to one of our newer hires. And thank you, Jefferson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Member Ken Monty.
Thank you, Chair Block. Jefferson, the plan seems to be working perfectly. Better to have issues now sorted out in Fresno with folks before it spreads throughout the state. So not to wish ill on the launch, but that's the whole point, right? To go through the issues now, hopefully there will be fewer before it's used throughout the state. So Appreciative to everyone who's doing that and all the hard work of your team. We got some good messages from Rosario Phillips this morning, getting the board members on board for us to be learning how to use this. So it's exciting times, and thank you to everyone for the hard work.
It is an organizational wide effort. I mean, our IT staff is working obviously really hard on this, but we're working with, again, subject matter experts and folks who represent their work groups, and they're fantastic. It's taken all of us to get this far. So thank you all.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Jefferson, for that report. Moving on to item number 9 on our agenda, a report by Rob Silva, Chief of Administrative Services. Rob.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Block, excuse me, members of the board. I too have a brief report. I just returned last night from a very long trip, so I'm squarely in catch-up mode here. But I will start with, again, reminding the board that between the April and May board meetings, we had the reported 18 COVID cases in a 21-day period. Not to be outdone, in the 20 days since the last board meeting, we've had 20 reported cases. So obviously that's 1 per calendar day. And again, as Chief Kutry reported, only 5 brief closures resulted from those 20 reported cases. Again, I was gone for the majority of this period, so I really want to give kudos to Valerie Graziano of Administrative Services for filling in and triaging a lot of the things that had to happen, in addition to all the work from Jeff Kumanchik, Gregory Kratol, Seek Run, all the PJs, LSSs that have to jump in and deal with these things. Also, I wanted to give a quick security camera update. Corey Hsu of admin just last week visited the Los Angeles and Pasadena offices to update the security cameras and security camera servers. The only remaining office for which that needs to be done is Oxnard. And there are 4 smaller outstations, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Lancaster, and Chatsworth. That will be the last security upgrade camera installations. And lastly, on the hiring, support staff hiring, we have hired 4 support staff since the last board meeting, and we have 16 pending. Michael Ing, I'm sure will follow up with the question, which this may answer it or not. I think his main question was with regard to retention. And unfortunately, I don't right now have retention specifics in front of me, but those are figures I can get very, very quickly for the board, if you like. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Moving to questions or comments for Rob Silva, beginning with Vice Chair Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rob, for that report. Welcome back. I'm, like Mr. Ing, interested in the support services staffing issue, but I'm going to let Mr. Ing probe that a little bit further. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Member Ing.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Rob, thanks a lot. Welcome back. And on the staffing issue, I have a little bit of a less clear understanding in terms of overall, in terms of all the field offices. Number one, do we know in terms of the entire system how many vacancies there are? Is there anything systemic that prevents us from filling those vacancies? And in terms of the pending vacancies, I think you mentioned there were 16. What's the plan of action to fill those positions? And I realize that this is not a CUIAB problem. It's really a problem that I have observed in other agencies throughout the state. Very, very low unemployment rate and a lot of moving around from different positions to the other, mainly because of COVID. Okay,
yeah, with regard to, well, just to give an overarching response to when field offices request support staff positions, in almost no case are they being denied the opportunity to hire at whatever classification they want to, as long as it fits within their true business needs. There may be situations in which they're being asked to hire at a limited term when they want a permanent full-time position, and that's just in careful preparation for the eventual workload downtick that will happen. But they don't want for positions in field operations. It's very, very seldomly that we would simply deny a request, and I can't even think of in the last 2 years when we have done that. With regard to problems in hiring, we've addressed that through when offices have had difficulty geographically hiring in, say, the office technician classification. We've moved to the office assistant classification and even the seasonal clerk classification to try to just, again, cast a wider net of recruitment in those areas to try to get people into the positions. When we promote, which happens often. In fact, we just promoted a program tech 3 today into a legal support staff supervisor position in our inland office. That just went down. So now we'll backfill that position, which will be another promotion, and we'll backfill that position, which will probably be a new employee to the department. So it's in constant flux, and we're never not in movement with hiring support staff. And I mentioned the 16 that are pending. A lot of those have had final filing dates already, and they're simply going through the interview process and a name clearance process as well.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up, if I may.
Sure.
Is there, are the, just give me a little bit of a background. Is there a requirement for a examination for everybody in the support staff, or is that limited to certain positions, taking a test?
Yeah, there are, for most positions, well, I mean, for any entry level position, you would have to take a test and be reachable on that exam list. And then to promote from there, it depends on the line of promotion. In some situations, you're able to promote in place without an exam. In other situations, you'll have to take an exam to be able to promote.
And is that our exam, or is it a statewide exam? I'm just trying to get an understanding of what that would be.
Sure, they are statewide exams for the support staff classifications.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll follow up the next meeting, or if you want to send anything in between. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Mike. Moving on to member Allen.
Yes, Rob, welcome back. And one thing I'd like to mention is that about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I brought up this whole issue of recruitment and retention. And Rob did prepare a report for me, and we looked like we were in very good shape. But I do applaud the concern of other board members, because we're a team, and our ability to meet the needs of the people of California, the public we're serving, is something that I think Rob has really been attentive to, because I share the concern of my fellow board members that we just need the people power to be able to do our best for the public. Rob, the other thing is that I'd like to thank you for your work on our budget. I have been informed that essentially we have retained, and through statute, retained our budgetary authority over our own budget. So I'm glad that at least a misunderstanding maybe was cleared up for me as to our budgetary process. And I do understand that that through the cooperation of EDD, we were able to get the supplements that we needed. So anyway, Rob, welcome back and thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Moving to member Ken Monning.
Thank you, Chair Block. I just want to echo my colleagues' appreciation for you and your entire team, Rob. I'm glad that your team was able to cover your big shoes, fill your big shoes to give you a well-deserved break. And now that you're back, facing never a dull moment again. So thanks to everyone in your team for, constant flux, managing everything with staffing and COVID, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks to the whole board for those good questions and comments today, as usual. If we look at our agenda, we have now exhausted the open session items. I don't think we have any closed session items. I'll ask Mark Wusam, our general counsel, to confirm that.
Thank you, Chair Block. There are no closed session items today.
Okay. In that case, if members have nothing else for open session, we will adjourn this meeting. Seeing nothing else, this meeting is formally adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.